Hi, welcome back to another PWP educational series. This time we're going to be talking about disability. It's such a fun topic, but so this is probably one of the biggest decisions in a person's lifetime, according to my opinion, which is, how are we going to determine that you need help? In other words, there is a health incident, there is something going on in your life where you are about ready to lose control of your assets and maybe even some of your health decisions. And we want to talk through what does that look like, because this is a big deal. We've talked in other video sessions about we like power. We like to be in control. We like to be in control of ourselves. We like to be in control of our assets. But I think we all understand there may come a point in time in our life where a health incident, memory issues, some other life issues intervene, and we need assistance at that moment in time. So we're going to talk about this. It's called disability planning. And the question that we're asking here, again, is very specific. How do we determine that you need assistance? Not what do we do afterwards, not who's the successor trustee, not who's going to make your healthcare decision. That comes later. This is only about how do we determine that you need assistance at this point in time. So we're going to pop up a slide here, and we're going to take a crack at determining your disability.
So a more traditional method includes doctors. So a more traditional method is going to say, I'm going to have one or two doctors sign something that says, yes, I need help managing my finances and I can't make financial decisions any longer. But for me, my parents live over in Eastern Washington and they probably know me the best. And so in that more traditional system, their voices aren't heard. So what we can do is we can create what's called a panel, which means that we can include the doctors if we want to, but now we can also include family members, friends, people who know you really well, to either help the doctors determine that you need help managing your finances, or we can kick the doctors all the way out and say this is really a family and a friend issue, to make sure that that people who know me really well are the ones that are actually making this determination. So the first question really is, are you more inclined to have a doctor-driven only system? And if that's you, if you'd please indicate that on your sheet there, and decide whether you want a one doctor opinion, so one doctor is seeing that you need help managing your finances, or two doctors, so someone has to go and take you to two different doctors, and both of them say, yes, you need help managing your finances, and now we have a disability. Or are you going to use a panel, which means that we're going to have a series of family members, friends, and we'll come back to the doctors later. So that's the first question. Do you want to use doctors, or do you want to use a panel system?
So the strength of doctors is that it is a known system. It's what is very traditional, like we've said before. Danielle was talking about choosing one doctor. Well, that tends to be a little bit faster. We do need to get you to a doctor. We need to get you into an appointment. They're going to typically use a cognitive testing system to determine whether or not you can understand and have that, retain that power and control over your assets. It's very medically viewpointed. The strength of having two doctors is that you get that second opinion before your power and control is taken away, because we're talking about power and control, and so therefore someone may want a second doctor's opinion. The concern there is that it may slow things down. We need two doctors. We need two doctors to say the same thing. We need to get those letters and produce them. But if we get that successfully done, then that will be the trigger that says, okay, the successor trustee, it can now step into place, and on the financial power of attorney, which you will also have, that person can now take their place in that role. So it would trigger two different documents, your trust and your financial power of attorney. However, like Danielle said, we do have a different system, which is a disability panel. So if you've been on a business board, a church board, or any other type of environment similar to that, you understand that if you're in a board environment, a group environment, we bring an issue and we discuss it until everyone has their opportunity to say something. And then at the end, somebody finally says, okay, enough talking, let's take a vote on this thing. Well, with a disability panel, the topic is, are you able to continue to manage your financial affairs and manage your day-to-day living, or do you need assistance? So similarly, the individuals that you would put on your disability panel would be individuals, like Danielle said, that you implicitly trust. In other words, you trust them to such a degree that if they said you need help, you are more likely to believe them than anybody else. You have to implicitly trust these individuals. You have to respect their decisions and what they say about you. They have to know you well enough to make that determination. Now, in thinking through the disability panel, we're only showing one disability panel, but if you are married, understand that spouses, you do not have to have the same people. As a matter of fact, you won't, because typically you're going to have each other as a starting point to say, my spouse is the first person on the panel. Then from there, you can create your own panels. So it may look like adult children, maybe only one of the children, maybe multiple of them. Do you have a best friend that knows you well? Do you go to church with people that know you very well? Do you have siblings that are alive and can speak into this issue? So there's 3 lines within the disability panel for you to choose, but that does not mean you are limited to 3 or that you must have 3. That's just a number. It's there for us to fill out. It means nothing. I do get the question oftentimes, I'm sure you have as well, Danielle, is, well, can I just have my spouse? Well, that's not a panel. So therefore, we direct people away from saying you can just have your spouse. There needs to be at least 2 people in order to have a panel that would operate together. So again, in thinking through, who do you implicitly trust? Who would you say knows you well enough that if you were not being yourself, if you were not acting like yourself, that they would know and that they would be able to make a decision of this nature?
One of the other comments that I get a lot oftentimes is, well, my sibling knows me really well, but they're close to my age or they're older than me. So just as a reminder, we have our maintenance program, and it's for exactly that. So we're making a decision for if something happened to you tomorrow or sooner rather than later, really. If there's life changes for them, the people on your panel, as your family changes, then we'll go in and update those. So who knows you well today,
right,
and is able to make that decision?
Yeah, very good. So then we're kind of back to the decision-making chart here. After you've determined these are the individuals I trust, it could be 2, it can be 3. Boy, if it gets to be more than 4, we're probably going to start talking you away from adding people, because then we have to start chasing a lot of people to get their signatures, and they have to participate in the discussion. So our recommendation, you can do as many as you want, it's not a problem. I'm just saying that it's typically our recommendation that you have 3 or 4, 2 is a minimum. Then the next question is, do you want those individuals to see and come to a unanimous vote, or is a majority vote okay? What's the strength of a unanimous vote?
Yeah, so a unanimous vote means that everyone on your panel is seeing the same thing. So everyone's seeing the same thing, everybody agrees, but that can mean that there could be one holdout, and so there could be a time lapse between getting everybody to agree. So you could also have them come to a majority decision. Now this is if you have more than 2 people on your panel, but a majority decision means that we're going to get away from that one holdout, and so a majority decision would say, yes, you need help managing your finances. So if you could please determine a unanimous decision or a majority decision on your sheet.
Yeah, for spouses, one thing that we've been talking about with clients more recently is if it's a majority decision, let's say you have 2 kids, so you put your 2 kids there because they're both responsible, and you have your spouse. So now we have spouse and 2 kids. Now, would you want the 2 kids to be able to outvote your spouse? So you may go, ooh, I don't want that, so let's make it unanimous. Well, now we're back to this problem of, but unanimous, there could be one person being held out. So if you are married, if you choose a majority, we can use language that says, if it's a majority, my spouse must be in the majority. So in other words, if your spouse says no, it ends the vote. But if your spouse says yes, then we need someone else in agreement with him or her. So we can add a spousal requirement to actually have a yes panel vote. Also then we're into replacements.
Yeah, so if you and your spouse are in a joint accident, or you and your best friend, so someone can't serve on your panel for one reason or another, then who would step into their place? So who's somebody else who you didn't put on your initial panel, but who you implicitly trust, who would take that person's place so that you still have that same number of people on your board? So if you can write that person in.
Yeah, so it's a replacement. It's a, for one reason or another, somebody can't serve.
Yep.
Life happens. So who else then would step in? Now, if you have more than 2 people, you may say, I really don't want anyone else. I would just trust the other people that are already on the board. That's totally fine. But if you only have 2 people, then we need a replacement voice in case one of the 2 can't serve. So if you have more than 2, you may still want that replacement. You may say, oh yeah, my best friend would be a great person if one of my kids was unable to actually be a part of the panel. No problem, then let Joe come on. Great. So more than 2 people, you can elect to have a replacement, or you can elect to have the board move forward as it is. If you only have 2 people, then we absolutely need who is going to replace one of the 2 should one person not be able to do it. Now, one of the options may be that a doctor comes on at that point.
Yeah, so we want to talk about what we do with the doctor. So it may be that it might be a good place to have a replacement be a doctor. You can also include a doctor on your panel. So we had talked about a traditional system, but in your panel, they can work with your family and friends to make that determination. If you say yes, put them on the panel, that means that they get a vote. Remember the board setting, so they get a vote as to whether or not you're disabled.
So therefore you are going to need to be seen by a doctor in order for them to take a vote. You're going to have to be medically evaluated. There could be a comfort in that.
Yeah. We can also require that your panel consult with a doctor. So the doctor doesn't get a vote, but you still have to be medically evaluated before your panel can cast their vote. So they have to go get an opinion of a doctor.
They don't have to follow the doctor's advice, but again, you would need to be evaluated and get the doctor's wisdom so that the panel has both practical and medical knowledge to see the whole picture.
Or we can leave the doctors completely out of the equation, which means that your panel can have you go and seek medical advice, but they are not required to before they cast their vote. So one of the advantages of that is that sometimes getting in to see a doctor and having you medically evaluated for this type of thing can take several months to be able to do that. Yeah. So it would get rid of the time if they don't feel that it's necessary. Or you can require them to go and consult with a doctor. So if you please indicate whether you want your panel, your doctor to be on your panel, means they get a vote, or your panel is required to consult, but the doctor does not get a vote, or they're not involved at all, they're not legally required to be involved at all, and therefore we're just going to entrust that your panel members will seek medical advice if they need to.
So the last thing is that we can use a consultation to other people. So for example, if you have younger kids, they're in their teens, maybe their young 20s, you don't have them making decisions for you, but their opinion is important. Or your parents are living and you go, I don't want my parents making this decision, but I would want them to be consulted just to hear what they might have to, what they may say about the issue. Then that would just be a strict consultation. If a doctor or any other family members, any other friends go on the consult list, then the panel is required to consult them. Okay? So therefore you can add anybody to the consultation list on that far right. Otherwise, you can leave that blank as well. So there you go. Those are the couple of decisions. We have a traditional system, or we have a panel system.
Yep. So we'll talk more about that when you come in for your counseling, but thank you for listening to our video, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks.